Hi everybody and welcome to this video which focuses on different types of nouns. In this video we'll be taking a closer look at some of the noun types I think are the most interesting to look out for and write about when studying A-level English. So let's start with a quick recap of what a noun is. Often it's described as a person, place or thing, or you might have heard it being called a naming word, so naming what something is. And you have lots of different nouns types as you can see here. We've got common and proper nouns, singular and plural nouns, countable and uncountable nouns, abstract nouns, concrete nouns, pronouns. You may also have heard of material nouns and collective nouns as well, but the ones I want to focus on today are the ones in pink. After exploring these noun types, we'll look at an example of them being used and then think about how you can successfully write about them. So starting with abstract nouns. Abstract nouns, as the name may suggest, are nouns that you can't physically touch or see. They are the idea or state of something rather than something concrete that you can physically touch. So some examples on the screen here, we have the ideas of love and hate. The word idea itself is an abstract noun, and some others would be success, bravery, and luck. Now they're interesting to write about because they're impossible to quantify or measure, and they deal with more complex ideas than concrete nouns. They're used a lot in literature, but also in non-fiction texts, such as speeches and articles, when there is a call to action that the writer or speaker wants to impress on the text receivers. The second noun type that I think is really useful for you to be familiar with and look out for, some might say is not a noun at all, and that's a pronoun. More specifically here, we're looking at plural pronouns. Now, hopefully you know a pronoun is a word that replaces a noun. So instead of saying someone's name, you may refer to them as he, she, or they, if others know who you're talking or writing about. Now, what I think is interesting about plural pronouns is the way a speaker or writer uses them to either bring a group together or to separate them. If you're speaking to someone and using the first person plural pronoun, like the ones we have here, so we, our, us, it very much shows you're a team and that you're in it together, or you need to support one another. The second person, and this is the plural and singular form of the second person pronoun you can show that the person is an individual, and the third person, them, they, themselves, etc., separates whoever you are talking or writing about from yourself. So these types of pronouns can be very interesting to look out for and spot in a text, as it can give you an insight into how close the relationship between the text receiver and the text producer is, or how close they want that relationship to appear to be. The final noun types I want to look at before putting this all into context with a real life example is the difference between proper and common nouns. Quite simple to get your head around. A proper noun is something that refers to a noun specifically by name, and a common noun refers to general things. So examples on the screen here, we have the proper noun Germany versus the common noun a country. Calling a teacher just the teacher would be the common noun rather than calling them by their name, Miss Smith. Referring to YouTube as a web page would be the common noun rather than calling it by its actual proper name, YouTube. And this final one, some speakers or writers may talk about a war in a general way as an example of common noun versus talking about a specific war such as the Iraq or the Ukrainian war. As you can see, common nouns at times can be seen as more vague, which can be a benefit to speakers or writers in certain circumstances, whereas proper nouns are always more definite in terms of what someone is referring to, which can be a good thing when you want to be more direct and perhaps speak with a voice of strength. So let's now put this into context by looking at a real life example that uses these noun types. What I have here is a small part of John F. Kennedy, a former president of the United States' inauguration speech, which is the speech that presidents give at the start of their time in office to set out what they plan to achieve and what type of president they hope to be. The part of the speech I've picked is where JFK is talking directly to other countries who were seen as a threat at the time and pledging that they both look towards creating peace. So here he says, "Finally, to those nations who would make themselves our adversary, we offer not a pledge but a request, that both sides begin anew the quest for peace, before the dark powers of destruction unleashed by science engulf all humanity in planned or accidental self-destruction. We dare not tempt them with weakness, for only when our arms are sufficient beyond doubt can we be certain beyond doubt that they will never be employed. You can see I've highlighted in yellow all the noun types that we have discussed, which are interesting and that you could say something about. So to start with, you have the common noun phrase, those nations. Notice he doesn't name any countries by name, and I suppose the reason for this is so that he appears strong, but also isn't going to directly insult or upset any other countries. They will know, and the audience at the time will know who he is talking about, but without naming them directly, it's also not creating any face-threatening acts towards them. I've also highlighted the series of pronouns he uses, both first-person plural with the use of we and our, showing that even though he is the president, he is speaking for all of the USA, and showing that he wants to be the one to bring everyone together. The word both on the third line is also being used as a pronoun here and trying to unite all nations. This is then contrasted with his use of the third-person plurals, them and themselves, to separate those nations who are a potential threat, perhaps trying to isolate them and show that if he needs to be tough and strong against them, he will do that. Finally, dotted through this section of speech, we have a number of abstract nouns: peace, destruction, weakness. Destruction can be a noun used to create fear, and peace in contrast is something to aim towards, but a very subjective thing. You often see politicians using lots of abstract nouns in their big speeches because they aren't measurable, and therefore it can be hard to dispute if the goal has or hasn't been achieved. So, as always, let's end with thinking about how we would actually write up an answer if we were analysing the JFK speech. So, this is what I've written. In this section of his inaugural speech, JFK makes use of a number of plural pronouns to present the USA as a united and strong force, with himself as the leader of this. We is used multiple times when he is offering statements about how they will handle nations who make themselves adversaries. JFK's use of the common noun nations is interesting here, as it suggests he is not, at this time, going to publicly name the countries he is referring to, perhaps giving them a chance to stop any plans for war or destruction that they have before the USA is forced to take action. The speaker also uses a number of abstract nouns, such as peace, to give an idyllic but unquantifiable view of what all nations should be aiming for. This is juxtaposed by his use of the abstract noun destruction, which is again referencing some of the plans other countries might have without being too specific or direct. You can see here I've referenced all the noun types that we've looked at in this lesson and been specific about what impact this has on the voice JFK creates within his speech. I hope you found this video useful, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel.
Created using Powtoon.